What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another edition of Pro Football Focus. Today, we are doing Week 3 picks in the NFL here on the John Check Sports Media Network. And I know I missed the Thursday Night Football picks. I need to start doing it a week ahead of time for my Thursday night picks because I plan on doing these pick'ems every single Saturday. But this week, it was the Redskins and Giants. And I'll paraphrase a little bit. What went on between those two teams. The Giants were coming off an 0-2 start, and they very well could have been 2-0 coming to this game. They blew a tough game against Dallas. They blew another game where they're leading late against the Atlanta Falcons, and they come out in this game, and there was just no shot that they were gonna lose this game. The Redskins, they had a win last week, but I don't buy into the Redskins one bit. I know how good Matt Jones was. Matt Jones had a great week, and it was last week, and it was a big question to how many touches he's going to get. Is he going to take away a lot of touches from Alfred Morris? And it turns out, either if you're a fantasy owner of Matt Jones and or Alfred Morris, it wasn't a good day for either one of those guys. The Giants come out and get an early safety in this game. Larry Donnell and OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr., had a really, really good games this game. OBJ had an awesome touchdown in the third quarter. Basically, the Giants dominated this game from the word start to go. The Giants' offense looked really good. They were marched up and down the field quite a bit the first half of the game, but the Redskins did a pretty nice job of limiting their offense to field goals for a little bit until they started scoring towards the end there when OBJ got a touchdown and Larry Donnell got a touchdown as well. But it was pure domination from the Giants. I did not expect the Giants to come out and lay another dud against a really crappy Washington Redskins team. They're just not good at all, and with the Tony Romo going down now, we'll talk about that too. I think with how bad the Eagles' offense is looking, and their defense isn't looking much better either, this could be potentially the Giants, even though they're an 0-2 starter, they could come back and win this division, even though a lot of people think, no, Phillies can still do it, and, Dallas is still the team to beat in that division, but I beg to differ. But it was a lot better game. Eli Manning is yet to throw a turnover. He's on his longest streak of pass attempts without throwing an interception. So Eli's doing a nice job taking care of the ball. And a lot of it has to do with, he's not stretching the field as much as he has last year, forcing a lot of down yard throws. He's more, most of his passes this year have been, between 5 and 15 yards, kind of taking a page out of his brother Peyton's book, little short check down passes, middle of the field, and high percentage throws, and hoping guys miss on tackles. And like I said, essentially, Giants looked a lot better. Kirk Cousins didn't look good in this game at all, and the score wasn't conducive whatsoever to actually what the game was. The Giants ended up winning 32-21, but it wasn't even that close at all. The Giants were pretty much kicked the Redskins' butt pretty good this entire game, and I had them to win this week. I'm going to start doing my Thursday night picks a week early now since I'm going to start doing these on Saturday. So let's begin with the rest of the field here. Last week that there's no teams with no bye weeks. So we're going to start out with the Falcons at Cowboys. Now, last week, Tony Romo, who's on my fantasy team, just big loss for me. I had Eli Manning to replace him. Tony Romo broke his clavicle. He's out, I think, 6 to 8 weeks. He could be on the shelf as long as Dez Bryant's on. Now, I don't get how anyone can sit here and say that they think the Cowboys are still the class of the division where they're going to have Brandon Weeden out at quarterback. Now, Brandon Weeden, after he took over for Tony Romo, was 7 of 7 on the day for passing, in his limited attempts. And I believe he had a touchdown pass. It was to Terrence Williams, I believe it was. But Brandon Weeden is not a good quarterback. He's statistically one of the worst starting quarterbacks ever. He's not good whatsoever. You don't have Dez Bryant to even make... it'd be one thing if Brandon Weeden had Dez Bryant still in the lineup for him to be able to throw the ball to. But for him not to have Dez Bryant, for all he has is Beasley and Williams, are his main two guys, Jason Witten. And Witten's banged up. I don't get it. I don't get how people expect this Cowboys team to continue to win in the NFC East. Now, mind you, the thing about the NFC East is it's not a good division. But you have no Tony Romo. You have no Dez Bryant. You're going to be expecting Brandon Weeden. Now, they traded for Matt Castle. But how good is Matt Castle? I mean, he had one good year at the Patriots. But he was on the Patriots. He was a system quarterback. Lays a dud with the Chiefs. awful. Not good on the Vikings. He gets cut by the Bills, re-signed by the Bills, traded from the Bills. Now he's on the Cowboys. I just don't get it. It'd be one thing if Dallas had a dominant defense where they could keep teams, low-scoring affairs. But, they lost Skandrick for the year. One of their best cornerbacks. So, I don't see the Cowboys somehow, staying in this division, especially with Brandon Weeden and Matt Castle at quarterback. And you don't really have a good running attack this year. So far, their running backs haven't been nearly as effective as they were last year. I mean, Randall, Michael, and McFadden haven't really done much so far to this point this year. And they're going to have to start doing something. If you're going to mask Brandon Weeden being your quarterback, you better start doing something. Because Brandon Weeden is not good, and your defense is not amazingly good either. And you got a lot of injuries. So Cowboys, with a healthy team, I think are by far the best team in that division. But no Romo, no Dez, a banged-up Witten, not a great defense. You got Brandon Weeden and Matt Castle as your potential quarterbacks. I'm sorry. So the Falcons travel to Dallas to take on the Cowboys. And I'm taking the Falcons all day, every day. Julio Jones is a monster. Tevin Coleman, I don't believe, is playing in this game because he's banged up. But, the Cowboys were 4-4 at Jerryland last year. They're 8-0 on the road. But I'm not picking the Cowboys until I see how this team looks without a Dez and without a Tony Romo. So it's a further notice. They're pretty much a lock loss for me. So I'm taking the Falcons to beat the Cowboys. Next game is Colts at Titans. Now, the Colts are an 0-2 spot. They've looked awful. I was dead wrong last week about I thought the Colts were going to come out and have a good game against the Jets. Another week where they don't score until the third quarter. Frank Gore had a couple of better runs. Andre Johnson looks lost out there. They're pretty much forcing the ball to Hilton and Moncrief at this point. The Colts defense isn't good at all. I mean, this is the week that they have to do something. Now, the Colts were in the same position last year, 0-2, and then they faced the Jags, beat them 44-7, rattled off 5 straight wins. Now they're facing a Titans team where Marcus Mariota, the Colts defense isn't that great. Mariota hasn't looked that bad at all to start the year. His first game, 4 touchdowns in the first half. His last game, a little bit more adversity, but, he got sacked a lot. He got hit a lot. That was the biggest thing. They didn't protect him as well as they did the first week. But, with the Colts' lackluster defense and, Mariota's looked a lot better, I think this is going to be a closer game than some people think. Now, the Colts have traditionally beat up on the NFC South, or AFC, or am I saying NFC? AFC South opponents. But I don't see the Colts falling to 0-3. I think this is the game where Andrew Luck comes out. Andrew Luck has turned the ball over a lot. Even Chuck Pagano has come out and said that, his quarterback needs to do a better job protecting the ball. That this isn't rocket science, blah, blah, blah. Or this isn't trigonometry. The offense is what he said. So I think this is the game where Andrew Luck comes out and they finally start looking like an Andrew Luck run team. And, they have to do something because if they lose to the Titans and they're 0-3 and they can't even beat AFC South opponents, if I'm a Colts fan, I'm nervous. I'm scared. So I'm going to take the Colts to beat the Titans at home, but I don't think this game is a gimme game whatsoever with how good good Mariota's looked and the Colts defense. Next game is Raiders at Browns. This is a hard one because last week one of my locks of the weeks was I thought the Raiders were going to get demolished by the Ravens, but they didn't. They beat them. It was an offensive shootout at first, and the Ravens got behind, and the Browns or the Raiders won the shootout. Amari Cooper had 110 yards. I think he had 5 catches to score. Latavius Murray had a good game. Derek Carr had over 350 yards passing. The Raiders defense didn't look good, obviously. They allowed 30 points. But they got it done and in Oakland. I mean, it was a really big upset win. I didn't see it coming from anywhere. The Browns last week, Johnny Manziel, Johnny Football there, baby. Even though I don't do that anymore. He came out and he got his very first win and he looked good. Travis Benjamin actually has the most touchdowns of 50 or more yards in the NFL. He's got 4 of them already. Now, McCown's been cleared to play this week, and Mike Pettin said that Johnny Manziel, he ain't going to be Johnny Football. He's going to be Johnny Clipboard. And he's riding with McCown because he says it gives him the best chance to win. Mike Evans came out and actually said that he doesn't agree with, even it doesn't matter, obviously, because he's on the Bucs. But he doesn't agree with Mike Pettin's move to go with McCown over, Manziel. And Mike Evans has played with Josh McCown before. Obviously, he's played with both quarterbacks in his career. Obviously, Johnny Manziel when they were at Texas A&M together. So they're going with McCown, and I can't believe this because Johnny Football he's made some stuff happen. I mean, his first game when he took over from McCown, he had some bad throws, even though he started out good. But the last game, he looked a lot better. He didn't throw as many times. They didn't let him throw as much, but he had some nice throws. He's a lot more accurate. He protected the football a lot better, and the Browns defense did a really good job. They came out and they played strong last week too. So I can't believe, they got this guy who they wasted a first-round draft pick on, but they'd rather start a middle-of-the-road quarterback who's not good in McCown, yet you wasted, I think, the 22nd overall pick on Manziel, and you're still not going to use him. This guy is supposedly your franchise quarterback. You're going to keep letting him ride pine. You don't know what you have here with him. It's not like McCown's a way better option anyways. Let Johnny Football play. See what you got. See what you spent a first-round pick on. If he continues to struggle and he doesn't look good after a couple weeks, then you start to know, okay, well, something, maybe this year in the draft, we got to go out and we got to get a quarterback. We got to start looking to the future. Johnny Manziel just isn't the guy that we thought he was and he was going to be able to be for our offense. He's not going to be able to lead this team. For you to keep sitting there giving this guy spot start after spot start, don't give him a real opportunity to get his feet wet and be, hey, you're a starter. You're controlling our football team. We're behind you 100%. What was the point of drafting him? Why would you even consider him a potential franchise quarterback? Let's see what you have with Johnny Football. Don't keep putting Josh McCown in there. Josh McCown is awful. He was good for a few weeks with the Bears. He got a contract out of it with the Bucks. He wasn't good with the Bucks. He hasn't been good with the Browns, in his limited time. He's just not a good quarterback. Let Johnny Football play. See what you have. See what you wasted a first-round pick on. With that said, the Raiders at Browns, this is a hard game because I could see the Browns winning this game. But after the Raiders beating the Ravens, who knows? I think what it's going to come down to is that Amari Cooper, I don't think is going to have nearly the week he had last week because Joe Hayden is going to be covering Amari Cooper this week, which makes me believe that, I wish it was Johnny Football's playing because it would make me lean towards the Browns a little bit because because the Raiders defense is good and I think Johnny Football could scramble for quite a few yards against that defense. But I'm going to take the Browns just because they're at home. And I think Travis, with an Oakland secondary that isn't that good, I think with Travis Benjamin already having 4 50-yard touchdown plus yard touchdowns, I think that's going to be the difference maker. You got that big playmaker in Benjamin, and he doesn't have to face a corner like Amari Cooper does in Joe Hayden this week. So that's what's going to keep me for taking the Browns. Now, Bengals at Ravens. The Ravens are 0-2. But the Bengals have looked really good. Andy Dalton hasn't looked like Andy Dalton. He has looked really good to start the year. Giovanni Bernard's looked good. They ended up benching, what's his name? Green, I believe his name is. No, not AJ Green. They, I don't know why the running back, Jeremy Hill. That's his name. They ended up benching Jeremy Hill because he fumbled the ball, had fumble troubles, and Bernard looked really good in week 2. So, this game, Ravens are at home. Their defense, got crushed by the Raiders last week. Like I said, Carr had 350-some yards. So, something? I'm going to take this game. I think the Ravens are going to fall to 0-3, and I think the Bengals are going to come in to Baltimore and steal one. I really do. I like what they're doing on offense. I like what they got with Hill and Bernard, and I love A.J. Green, and Andy Dalton's looked really good, and that Cincinnati defense has looked pretty good thus far too. So I think I'm going to take the Bengals over the Ravens. And we got Jags at Patriots. Do I even need to say anything about this game? It's at Foxborough, and it's the Jaguars. Patriots all day, every day. If you have Allen Robinson on your team, though, on your fantasy squad, start him on the Patriots because the Patriots have allowed, I think, the 5th most passing yards in the NFL on their secondary. So Allen Robinson might get you some nice points against a weak Patriots secondary. Just like the Bills, and the Bills scored on them pretty good. So, obviously, Patriots. Saints at Panthers. Drew Brees, I don't think he's starting this game. I think he's been ruled out. So, Luke McCowan, who is in those Verizon commercials as a backup, he's going to not be a backup anymore. He's going to be starting this game. It appears he's going to be starting this game against the 2-0 Panthers. And Newton last week had a great week. He had a good week rushing the ball on the ground. He pretty much did everything last week. He was a one-man show there. So I'm going to take the Panthers to beat the Saints. No Drew Brees on a team that's already not good. You know, the Saints, they can't even win at home anymore. They lost to the Buccaneers last week in the Superdome. So they got 5 straight losses there. I'm taking the Panthers at home all day, every day. Eagles at Jets. Now this is going to be a good game. You got an Eagles team that's looked awful, awful, awful. Sam Bradford just does not look comfortable in this Chip Kelly's offense. See, what the Chip Kelly offense is predicated on is a quarterback that can get the ball out fast. Because this is why people wanted him to get Marcus Mariota. You needed a guy who, if coverage breaks down and he couldn't get the ball out quick, you needed a guy who's going to be able to scramble and extend plays to allow your wide receivers to get open in this fast up-tempo offense. Sam Bradford's like a statue. Man's had 2 ACL repairs. He ain't running fast at all. He ain't gonna escape the pressure. He's gonna be taking sacks. DeMarco Murray has 11 yards on the year. This man was the rushing champion in the NFL last year. He almost set the all-time record for most consecutive 100-yard games to start the season. He has 11 yards to start the year. He had 2 in his last game. And he might not be playing this week because I guess he's got a hamstring issue. Maybe. You know, they probably just don't want to see him rush for 2 more yards. This offense has looked awful. The Eagles' offensive line, with no Mathis on there, is really hurting. Their offensive line is nearly completely different than it was last year. And you could tell. They are awful up front. There's no holes for Murray to run to. And you know something? They keep doing all these runs out of the shotgun with Murray, which is screwing them up. And then they keep doing, when they do go in like a single back formation, you know, all they do is tosses. They don't let this guy who's a north-south runner run north and south. You know, they keep trying to get him to the outsides or keep him started from the shotgun. It just is not working. And when you got a crappy offensive line like the Eagles do, it's just not working out. And when you got someone like Sam Bradford who can't extend plays with his legs, and when he can't get the ball out quick, it's just looked terrible. And the Eagles' defense, it's looked terrible. Absolutely a terrible, terrible defense. So I'm taking the Jets. They're traveling to the Meadowlands. No way. Not with the way this Eagles offense has looked and how bad their rushing attack's been and how bad their offense has been too. I don't even think Nelson Aguilar has 50 yards yet in the NFL. And this guy was our first-round pick. I'm sorry. The Eagles are falling to 0-3. The Jets' defenses looked way too good. And Ryan Fitzpatrick's looked good. Brandon Marshall's looked good. Chris Ivory, you know, he's been pretty good so far. I'm taking the Jets. Bucks at Texans. Texans are another 0-2 team. Bucks beat a crappy Saints team last week. So this game, for me, Ryan Mallett, he's had one of the lowest game scores by a quarterback in the NFL already through his first 2 games, or 1.5 games, I guess you could say. I think he's posted like a negative 8.3 game score. If you go on Pro Football Focus, that's their rating for their game that week. And he's looked awful. And the running game has been awful. Their defense, I think, what's their defense rank? I think their defense is ranked 12th, so they've been all right on defense. The rushing game is 24th. The last 3 times that these teams have met, Texas has took 2 of 3. The 2 of the 3 last meetings. So last time these two teams faced was in 2011, and the Texans whooped up on the Bucks 37-9. I think this is the game though the Texans get on the board and they get their first win of the year. You know, they're at home. You know, they've looked bad the last couple of weeks. I think if J.J. Watt can force some pressure on Jameis Winston. I mean, you already saw what the Titans did, you know, when they were forcing pressure on Winston, making him throw. You know, when he was uncomfortable, he's prone to throw some picks. So I think that's what J.J. Watt's going to have a good game this game. And, you know, they're going to have to force get some pressure in Winston's face and force some turnovers to win this game. If not, the Bucs could legitimately win this game. I'm starting to lose my love for the Texans. I guess that was the hard knocks disease that got to me. So I'm taking the Texans to win that one at home. Chargers at Vikings. Vikings, man. I had a butt whooping on the Lions last week, just like I predicted. The Lions' defenses looked awful too. But Teddy Bridgewater came out, had a great game. Adrian Peterson rushed for 139 yards last week, so he looked really, really good. The Vikings' defense had a good game too against Matt Stafford. So, you know, the Chargers, Phillip Rivers is inconsistent as all hell. I don't really like the Chargers at all this year. To be honest with you, their defense isn't good. Their offense is inconsistent week to week. I do like Melvin Gordon. I'm going to be interested. That's going to be the one fun part about watching this game, watching AP go up against a young stud in Melvin Gordon, because Melvin Gordon had a really good game last week. He was good in the first half, bad in the second half. He didn't really do much in the second half. So I'm going to take the Vikings at home to beat the Chargers. Steelers at Rams. Now, the Rams defense, they didn't look as good as I thought they would when they faced the Redskins last week. So, something, I'm going to take the Steelers because they're getting Le'Veon Bell back. Now you got Le'Veon Bell. You got the best wide receiver in the game in Antonio Brown. I mean, the man had 9 and 196 in a score last week. Marcus Sweeten, Darius Hayward-Bay. Now Le'Veon Bell with D'Angelo Williams, who just had 3 scores last week. I think he had like 76 yards. Good luck, Rams defense. There's a lot of weapons there to try to defend. Now, there's a saving grace. The Steelers defense has been awful against the run and the pass this year. I think they're allowing almost 100 yards a game on the ground, and their passing defense is like the 6th or 7th worst in the NFL. So, their passing defense hasn't been that great either. So, Nick Foles, this could be a good game for you Nick Foles fantasy owners for if you need some points. I think it's going to be a close game, but with getting Le'Veon Bell back to go along with D'Angelo Williams, and you got Antonio Brown, it's going to be an offensive shootout because if the Rams lose to the Redskins, and now they got to face a Le'Veon Bell-led squad with Antonio Brown, good luck. I'm taking the Steelers to beat the Rams. 49ers at Cardinals. This is going to be a good game. The Niners got blew out by the Steelers last week, and now they got to go to Arizona where Carson Palmer and company is looking really, really good. So this game, I don't think it's going to be that close either. I think the Cardinals are going to take it from the 49ers. And then the Bills at Dolphins. Now, there was some controversy in Dolphins camp this past week. I guess Ndamukong Suh is freelancing plays, from what they said. But Joe Philbin's like, oh, no, he's not. Everything on the tape I've saw has not shown me that. Ndamukong Suh is doing whatever he wants, blah, blah, blah. Coach talk, he's shutting up the media, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. This Dolphins defense has been good. The Miami Dolphins have been good. Buffalo Bills, they got their defense wasn't as vaunted, against the Tom Brady-led squad as, they were in week 1 against the Colts. But, something, the Dolphins defense hasn't looked good at all to start the year. I mean, this was supposed to be a team, with Wake and Sue and Grimes. They were supposed to be this amazing defensive team. What are they ranked defensively this year? So far, they're ranked the 23rd defense in the NFL, even though the Bills are the 28th. But you got to take that with a grain of salt with the Bills because they just allowed 40 points last week to the Patriots. So that really skewed their defensive numbers. And Tyrod Taylor's looked really good, too, to start the year. I mean, my big point about Tyrod Taylor last week was, and this is exactly what I said in my video. You can go back and watch it. Last Pro Football Focus, when I predicted week 2. I wanted to see how Tyrod Taylor would look when he was playing from behind. When the Patriots were running up the score, when Tyrod Taylor couldn't play conservative because he had a lead and he knew his defense could hold it. What happened last week? Patriots ran up the score. They forced Tyrod Taylor to throw. They made Tyrod Taylor play from behind. And he threw a couple of picks. But he made some things happen with his feet. He made some things happen with his arm. He had a touchdown. I think he had a rushing touchdown and a passing touchdown last week. So he looked, they made it a close game. I think they lost by 8 points. But that was what I wanted to see. How would Tyrod Taylor react when he didn't have a lead and it didn't have a defense dominating for him? The defense wasn't dominating for him. He didn't have a lead, and they were making fun behind. And he looked, a little bit more like a first-year starter. But, I was still impressed with how he looked. I mean, to make it an 8-point game and you were down that much, to come back from what they came from, and make it a semi-close game, I was impressed. So I like what Tyrod's done this year, which is the reason why, I'm just not impressed by the Dolphins. And I think this is going to be a bounce-back week for the Bills, and their defense is going to look a lot better this week against Tannehill and company. So I'm going to take the Bills to beat the Dolphins at home. And then you got the Bears at Seahawks. And there's no Jay Cutler. And Jimmy Clausen's going to be starting. And Jimmy Clausen is his entire career. He has one win. Ever. One win ever. And he's got to go against an 0-2 Seahawks team that's going to be having their home opener. That's getting back Cam Chancellor. And man, you're Cam Chancellor. How stupid do you look? You missed 2 weeks of game checks. You get all these fines. Not only do you not get your money raised for this year, you lose money, and then you got fined on top of all those fines. And then you're like, all right, guys, I got to come back. You know, he says he came back because he couldn't stand watching his team lose and he had teammates reaching out to him. No. Problem is, he's looking in his wallet. He's like, well, guys, I got no game checks coming in. And I got all these fines racking up. Hey, Pete, is my jersey ready to go? I think I might come back this week. We can talk about the contract later. Yeah, that's what I figured. But Seahawks defense needed Cam Chancellor because, my God, they were getting shredded in their secondary. Their defense was not good at all without Cam Chancellor. It's amazing to see how big one player affects their team. I mean, he is the heart and soul of their defense. You know, many players have said that. Michael Robinson says he's a straw that's sure there's a drink. And it was rarely apparent. So now they're getting back Cam Chancellor. They're at home, and they're playing a Bears team that has no Alshon Jeffrey and no Jay Cutler. Good luck, Chicago Bears. I'm taking the Seahawks. Then we got the Broncos at Lions. Lions. Whew. Matt Stafford, there was a lot of, was he going to play this week? That's all there was here in Michigan. Is Stafford going to play this week? Is Stafford going to play this week? And on 105.1 Detroit Sports, Matt Derry interviewed Stafford, and he said, he looked like he could barely move without hurting. I mean, his arm was in a sling. I mean, it was very apparent that he had like a rib injury. But I guess he's going to be playing this week. Now, if the Lions are going to even think about beating this Denver Broncos defense, that's been amazing to start the year. Well, you got to hope you get your running game going. That means you got to feed Amir Abdullah the ball. Joique Bell isn't good. Neither is Theo Riddick. You got Amir Abdullah. He's got to get more than 8 touches in a game. Because if Stafford's hurt and he's not going to be, you got to keep him out of, pressure, keep him from D-Ware or Von Miller sacking him, you're going to have to hand the ball off some or get some real quick throws out to keep Stafford on his feet. That's all there is to it. And the Lions' offensive line hasn't done a very good job of that this year. He got crushed by the Chargers, and he got hit pretty good by the Vikings last week. This is a Lions team that, they got to cover Demaryius Thomas, who had over 100 yards last week, 8 catches. They got to cover Emmanuel Sanders, who dropped 2 touchdowns last week, I think close to 100 yards. I mean, they have a lot of weapons, and this is a Lions team that has allowed quarterbacks to complete almost over 70% of their passes on them. Their pass rush has not been there, and they've allowed quarterbacks to walk all over them. And their run defense hasn't been better. And this is a Broncos team that hasn't been able to run the ball. So now you got a team that's not getting to quarterbacks, allowing a high percentage of throws. Their run defense hasn't been that good. This is a perfect storm for the Broncos to start 0-3. Because you got a quarterback that's extremely accurate, that feasts on teams that let him throw the ball with that high of a... I mean, come on, Teddy Bridgewater, I think, completed 70% of his passes last week. What do you think one of the most accurate passes of all time is going to do in Peyton Manning? He's going to pass all over them. Easily. And then C.J. Anderson, if he can get going in this game, it's over. Honestly, the Lions have like a 10% chance of winning this game. The only chance they have of winning this game is if they get to Peyton Manning and Darius Slay and Mathis are able to cover, what's-his-face, Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, which they're not going to be able to do. They're not. Because their pass rush sucks. They've gotten Keenan Allen slice them to death. They can't stop the run. And then you look at offensively, they scored 16 points last week. 16 points. And they don't give their ball to the best players. I mean, they tried to force it to Calvin Johnson a bit more last week. And Golden Tate has been a non-factor so far this year. They're not giving the ball Abdullah many shots. Stafford can't stay on his feet to get anything to go. To try any opportunities. Lions are going to be 0-3 to start this year. They are. There's no shot. No shot. You got a really good Broncos defense. You got a Matt Stafford that's hurt. You got a defense that's going to pressure Stafford. And they've done a good job stopping the run. Lions got like a 10% chance to win this game. The Broncos are going to destroy the Lions on Sunday night. And then last but not least, Monday Night Football. The Green Bay Packers are at home again hosting the Kansas City Chiefs. And believe it or not, the Kansas City Chiefs have never lost at Lambeau Field. They are 3-0 all time at Lambeau Field. But guess what? That's going to change. Because the Packers are going to win this game at Lambeau Field on Monday night. Big thing is you got to keep Jamal Charles in check. You got to do what they did to Marshawn Lynch last week. They did a great job keeping Marshawn Lynch in check. Doug Baldwin beat them a couple of times last week. It is what it is. You're not going to prevent all big plays for the entire game. Barclay did a nice job filling in for Balaga. They got Morgan Burnett back. I like what Randall's done this year. Sam Shields had a lot better game. Eddie Lacy might not play this game, but James Starks had 95 yards last week, so he looked really good filling in for Lacy. Devontae Adams is going to be down. He might be down, but that's okay, because Ty Montgomery was a lot more involved in the Packers offense last week than he had been in the first game of the year. So basically just move the chains. Montgomery's going to come up, and he'll be a stud if they need him. And you still got Richard Rodgers, and you still got James Jones. He's an amazing red zone target. And you still got Randall Cobb, who's looked a lot healthier last week, had a really good game, over 100 yards through the air for him. And you still got number 12 back there, who doesn't throw picks at Lambeau, and all he does is win at Lambeau. He's amazing there. So the Chiefs' all-time 3-0 record at Lambeau Field is going to end this weekend because Packers aren't going to lose to them. So I'm going to do my Thursday night preview for next week, Thursday night game next week for week 4, just so when I do this video next Saturday, I'll actually have my picks correct. Ravens at Steelers. I'm going to assume the Steelers. I picked the Ravens to lose, and I picked the Steelers to win. I'm going to pick the Steelers again to win at home against the Ravens. The Ravens are probably going to be 0-3, and the Steelers are probably going to be 2-1. So I'm going to pick the Steelers to beat the Ravens next week, and I will see you guys on when's my next podcast going to be for Pro Football Focus? Probably going to be sometime, it'll be next Saturday. I'll see you guys next Saturday with another edition of the Pro Football Focus. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. More podcasts to come. That's my Week 3 NFL picks here on the John Check Sports Media Network. Have a good one, guys.